Hey everyone. I'm Andrew. Also, everybody probably knows me as Panda. It's been a really long time since I made a video for my YouTube channel, but the last couple of days this has been just sticking on my mind so badly, and I can't resist it. I'll probably wind up making a second part to this video just because I want to go over some of my thoughts and opinions about some things that this video actually is going to relate to. But anyway, I'm just gonna kind of just jump into the point of it. Um, Probably back around 2007 was when it kind of dawned on me that FL Studio was a really easy thing to make music on, and everybody was on MySpace. That was the thing. I don't think Facebook really was as popular as it was. I never really heard anybody talking about Facebook um, back in that time. Um, but the big thing that I noticed was that there were a lot of MySpace musicians. That was like the big thing with MySpace, is that it had a really big music community, and a lot of people would make music and put it on MySpace either for free, or they would put their demos on there and then sell their EPs or albums or whatever elsewhere. But the thing about it is that around 2007, FL Studio started becoming a little bit more well known with these musicians. Some in air quotes, some not in air quotes, but in reality, a lot of people were just kind of teenagers that had a lot of time on their hands. And what came from this was this 3 to 4 year period where there were all these just basement musicians that were some people, including myself, had multiple projects that encompassed a bunch of different genres, or maybe some slight variations in sound in that. And it was kind of a convoluted mess because it was so easy to just get kind of sucked in to this really strange underground music community. And I actually like to call this the MySpace underground music. Um, Again, it started around 2007. That was when I first started noticing projects that were um, really creeping up and becoming popular. The biggest one that sticks out in my head, and I really think this person, I don't even remember his name to be perfectly honest. If somehow or another he's watching this video and sees it, just leave a comment or something. But um, Two-Headed Cat versus Unicorn Octopus. That was the first time I'd ever seen somebody that was just kind of putting out their own music and just making it and just throwing it out there for um, everybody to download. At least when it comes to this sort of thing. He had a MySpace profile and he uploaded his music to it and then released a few albums under that name over the next couple of years. Um, but that was the first musical project that ever kind of stuck out in my head that people actually did this. Um, I can't really think of any before that. I'm pretty sure there probably were some. I mean, definitely people like Jeffree Star were obviously popular because of MySpace, but he became more of a mainstream kind of artist as opposed to being this weird underground collective of people. And the other big thing about this was that a lot of this music was appearing on blogspot blogs, um, including my own. Some of my music is still floating around on the internet that way, but a lot of blog spots were cataloging all of this music and just sharing it with a big audience of people. And some of the other projects that really stick out in my head from this group of music was They All Had Tentacles. That was another one. 120% Says You're Going to Explode. Um, and then probably I would actually say this is probably a very close. Honestly, maybe the most popular project that evolved out of this thing was I Am Error. I used to have the T-shirt, but I'd since gotten rid of it. I think maybe he was probably the one to really spearhead this movement, because I think he was around 2005, 2006. I might be wrong on that. But I know he'd been releasing albums for a long time, but I hadn't stumbled upon his music until later. The first one I personally saw was Two-Headed Cat versus Unicorn Octopus, which that was another thing about these projects, is that usually they had kind of crazy and wacky names, or some of them would just use like a pun on an existing band name. Um, I would like to say that 90% of all of these projects were probably not really serious. Um, that doesn't mean that the music wasn't good and that, their intentions weren't, to, maybe achieve some sort of success out of it. But really, I think a lot of these projects get started as kind of like being a joke, or, just a way for someone to kind of pass time, give them something to do, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, even still today. But back then, it was such a big thing, at least from what I saw, because it was definitely a way for people to just kind of express themselves. Um, Getting all deep and philosophical. It was a way for people to express themselves in ways that they probably couldn't have otherwise, at least musically. Um, and a lot of experimental music kind of flew out of this whole thing. I know that this is where I kind of got into making and having an interest in very bizarre forms of music, and I've been going back and like re-listening to some of these projects, and I was like, there is some really good stuff here, from all these other groups that came out, and like some of the stuff that I even made. It's just like, this stuff is actually not horrible, even though some of it was just kind of mashed into FL Studio, and just FL Studio just made a bunch of noise, and that's what it did. Um, I mean, honestly, that would probably be a third part of this video, is me trying to go back and making one of those songs. I mean, it really, I would maybe spend like an hour or two on a song. Some of them maybe I would spend a couple of days on, but really, when I was making music, I would very rarely spend more than a couple hours making a song. Sometimes I would have songs done within an hour. Um, yeah, some of the stuff I actually do laugh about, just because they were kind of ridiculous. I always tried making like all these like really weird death metal logos, and they were very just weird and juxtaposed with all the other album covers. I was just like, I don't even know what I was doing. I was very novice with like Photoshop and design, and just I didn't know what I was doing on any front when it came to like music making or designing this stuff. I mean, my MySpace layouts were actually kind of cool, but I some of the things I put out there are actually kind of cringeworthy. Um, I'm drinking a mixture of 7-Up and Ruby Red Squirt. I don't know why, but I am. But yeah, like I started my first project that I can remember that I started as my own thing was called Darkness Glare in 2006. I know this kind of predates what I said. Um, but I had been trying to start bands and like a whole bunch of other things for a really long time when I was in high school, and this kind of happened like towards the end of me being in high school. And I had this like, this is when I also first learned of FL Studio, so I had no idea how it worked, and it was called Darkness Glare, and I made a demo and burned like 6 copies of it and gave it to a few of my friends, and they were all like, oh my god, this is so cool, but in reality it was shit. I'm probably gonna overlay music as I'm talking about it. um, and then the second part of this video will be me actually listening to other people's music, and maybe a little bit of my own, just to kind of give some insight as to what I was thinking when I was making it. But yeah, this is already going to be a really long video. I'm sorry now. But yeah, there was nothing to it. I didn't know how FL Studio works, so I just clicked some buttons and it made a song, I guess. Um, yeah, and that was like my first actual like being into it, and then I tried making it again with New Sorpigal. This was after I had started seeing like Two-Headed Cat versus Unicorn Octopus. I started another project called New Sorpigal, which was basically the same thing as Darkness Glare. I still had no idea how FL Studio worked. And I really don't think I knew how FL Studio worked until it was about 2008. I eventually stumbled upon what actually makes the thing work, and that's the piano roll, which I had no idea was even in there until I randomly clicked on it and it was there. So I started making music that way, and I had a project. I think it was called Please Insert Disc 3. I don't know. I really don't know. The names for these things, I don't know where they came from. I don't know. I just don't know where any of this crap came from. Yeah, so I made, I think, like a demo album under that name, and I think I was supposed to release something else like Planet of the Tarantula Hawks or something like that, and I never did. Um, that was another thing during this time, is that a lot of people would make stuff and then they would never release it, or they would say that it's coming out and they would never release it because I mean, that's what made me believe that a lot of this stuff really wasn't as serious as some people try to play it off to be, just because that kind of thing happened where someone would be like, oh yeah, I'm working on this album, and then it would just never materialize or never happen. Or they would just, just completely abandon their project and not do anything with it, which, again, it can't be a serious thing if you're just so willing to abandon it so fast. So yeah, so I had that going, and then that mutated into the Mecha Plague, which I released one album called Deep Sea Diving under that name. I think it was called Deep Sea Diving. Um, Mind you that none of my music really had vocals in it except for some stuff I did for Please Insert Disc 3. I'm not like a singer, so I always did like the aggressive, like that kind of stuff. I mean, anybody who knows me on Facebook knows I post that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, like I mean, if you go and I actually forgot a project. um, if you go and search up Jenga Towers Collide, you will actually still find the MySpace. It's still there. And I have some music on there. That's probably the only music I ever really released with vocals in it. Minus a Speedy Cake version of a song that was on Deep Sea Diving. I had vocals on it, but I can't sing for my life, so I was incredibly off tune, so I just pitched the song up and made it really fast, and that became like a Speedy Cake remix or something like that I released on that album. I don't know if this album's still floating around online somewhere. It might be. But I mean, if any of you are interested, I might upload it just so that way if anybody who's even remotely watching this and has any interest in hearing any of this stuff and understanding what this kind of music actually was, I'll be glad to upload it. I mean, it's actually funny to me now. For a while it was embarrassing, but now it's actually kind of funny and I have no problem sharing it. I mean, it's probably playing in the background of this video right now. So yeah, after the Mecha Plague, I had a horrible habit of either starting new projects or MySpace accounts or changing the names of things. Like, usually my projects would last like a single album or something like that, and then I would completely move on to something else. I think that this is why I wound up with maybe like 85 different MySpace profiles as well, because sometimes I wouldn't want to delete the profile, so instead of just simply changing the name and all this other stuff, I would just open a new account. And I'm not even joking. Anybody who knows me personally will tell you that I actually did run like I couldn't even count all the MySpace profiles I had at one time. They weren't for me. Like, I wasn't narcissistic enough to have every single account be me. Like, I mean, I would make all these different accounts for like different things. I had like one for a spoon, a plastic spoon, and then I had another one for this weird thing called Meepsy. Oh god, what else did I make? I ran a Rocco one for a little bit. I mean, a lot of this was just kind of like role play kind of stuff. But I would say that 80% of these profiles that I started up were probably actually just music. I honestly can't think of anything other than music than that I started up with some other intents and stuff like that. It was all like me and my friends would have like an inside joke, so I would start a MySpace page up for something, and it just kind of, yeah, MySpace was a weird time in everybody's lives that existed when they were a teenager and MySpace was a thing. So, anyway, so after the Mecha Plague, after all that came out, like, probably within like a couple of months, I turned the Mecha Plague into um, Glacial Melt, and that was when I released my first full length album. Um, that one I came out with an EP first, I think. I think the first thing I came out with was an EP called Ices, or I came out with the full length first, or the no. No, the full length came out second. So Ices was my EP as Glacial Melt, and then um, what was the name? System of Soul. That one I actually just downloaded a few minutes ago, and some of the music's actually not bad on it. Um, and I turned I that was the first project I had that actually lasted more than just like a single EP or something. Um, yeah. uh, my music was mostly just experimental. Like you can actually listen if you listen to everything that I made from that time to the stuff I've made like up to like a couple of years ago, you can actually hear like how I started discovering new things in it and how things actually worked. New VSTs, that kind of thing. Um, but that's neither here nor there. Really, it just kind of started getting crazy, and Glacial Melt was probably about the peak. It was for me. It was about as serious as I was going to get with it. I actually did everything I could to try to have like a following or have like thousands of friends on the profiles and things like that. Um, I honestly can't even really remember what kind of came after that. From there, I think what I did was that was when I started branching off and opening like multiple accounts because I didn't want to close one out because I wanted to have music for like different things. So what I wanted to do, if I had an idea for an album, what I was going to do is I was going to start a new MySpace profile and have a new project. Oh, I completely forgot about probably my most notorious musical profile. I know this one actually had a weird following. This is probably the actual only following I had that people actually acknowledged my existence as this. Was Stu and Dee Dee Pickles. That was a weird project. Originally, it started off with me making music with my Game Boy camera. There's like this weird like DJ thing in the game, and you can use that to make music. It's very strange, and like I recorded it using like a wave in and stuff like that, and it was really weird. Um, that was the first incarnation of it. The second round came when I had figured out FL Studio and that, and so what I did was I took an 8-bit VST, which I think was the magical 8-bit VST, and I can't even remember it was like whatever FPC I think it is the default FL Studio drum set thing, and I made like this weird kind of death metal 8-bit clash music. I don't even know how to describe it, to be perfectly honest. Um, so I released a couple demo songs as that version, and then I released an album called what's it called? All I know is it has this picture of Barack Obama's broccoli on the cover. Oh, what was it called? Sting Operations and Saboteurs, I think, or Saboteurs and Sting Operations, something like that. Yeah, again, like I said, I will upload this stuff if you guys really want to. If you guys really want to hear / see it. Um, yeah. So that was probably like the weirdest music I ever made. I remember after I released the album, I had tons of people like messaging me and adding me on MySpace and all this other crap. I thought about resurrecting the project at one time, but I ended up not even going through with it just because I don't know. It was just kind of weird, and I think I tried making another song like that, and it just didn't come out right. So I just said, I'm just gonna leave it dead. Pretty much all these projects, I would much rather them just stay dead. I don't think I'd probably want to dredge any of these back up. So anyway, moving further on is when like 2009 kind of rolled around, and that's when I was getting kind of crazy. I had one project called Jello Cube, which kind of morphed into Khan's Arena, which that one is like me messing with Slayer in FL Studio and like making like my own version of like a metal chord kind of thing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I have a couple of songs on there for that. I mean, some of these profiles are actually still up, so if you search them on Google, you'll actually find them. And then I had an 8-bit project that I released a split EP. I released my own EP and then a split EP with my friend Alex, and that one was called What an Anvil. I again, I don't know anything about these names. I don't know where they came from. Um, so that one was my 8-bit project. I don't know how that one came about. I really don't. I really don't know. Some of the stuff, it's just I know it's there. I don't know how it got there. I don't know what I was thinking when I made it. I don't know. I just don't know. I really just don't know. Um, so yeah, so that one I feel like is probably one of the best projects I ever had musically. The music that I came up with during that was actually pretty good. So that one was like almost pure 8-bit. Like it was basically taking every other kind of music that I had been making up to this point and just turning it 8-bit instead. And I think I had a lot more positive reception with that project. I don't think too many people downloaded my albums, but I know I had quite a few nice comments. Um, Not being sarcastic, like I actually had people that actually were complimenting my music as that project, and from there the project just kind of died. I know I ended up making like one or two more songs after I released the split with Alex because I was kind of impatient and I wanted to release music, so I released my own album. I think it was called Hello Mr. Merrick or something like that. I don't remember exactly. So yeah, I made that album and then we released a split EP not too long after that. So I had like my first three songs actually were on the split EP. I didn't make anything new. So if you were to actually go and download them, even though they came out my EP and then the split EP, if you were to actually go back and download them, the stuff on the split EP is actually older than the stuff that was on the album. If I'm remembering it correctly, I don't know for sure if that's what I did. I think I might have revamped the songs that appeared. No, you know what? You know what I did? The songs that were on the split EP were the original versions, and then I went back later and I kind of redid them, and uploaded them to the Myspace. So the new versions were on the Myspace, and then I never really released those separately. And then I released like one or two more songs, and then that project was done and over with. And I also want to point out too that a lot of these projects actually kind of coexisted at the same time. So when I'm talking about some of these projects, I was doing these projects like all at the same time. Um, I really cannot remember some of them. I know another one a lot of people liked was Invisible Island. I only ever made two songs with that one. But it was more of just kind of like an ambient, atmospheric kind of music. It wasn't anything that was like techno-y or anything like that. It wasn't even really electronica. It was just very ambient and just very focused on just sound. To be all artsy about it. But that project kind of died because I didn't really like making that kind of music as much. And it wasn't. It's not that it was bad. It's just that it wasn't exciting for me. So when I was making the music, it seemed kind of dull. Um, yeah. So from there, I know I had a project. This was probably the project that I released the most music with, which was 3 albums. I don't think I released more than that with any of my projects. But A Hero's Legacy, and that was the one where I kind of hoard myself out on MySpace to get a bunch of like friends on there. So I was adding like every MySpace account that I could find, of like this musical ilk. Um, yeah, I'm gonna just pull up MySpace in the background here because I honestly want to know like what what's even floating around still. I know some of these accounts are actually deactivated now, and like it's just one of those things. Like some of the stuff is just so weird. Like and I can't believe that it actually is still online for most of it. That's not what I want. White man build MySpace. That's not what I want. It's not there. Here we go. Found my Cons Arena profile, which was that like weird one. I'll play this stuff in the background. I'm not gonna play it through this just because it's kind of dull. Oh, I forgot a really good one. I lied about projects. About my first one being the one I released 2 albums under. 2007, like the end of 2007, I had a project called A Nasty Wound. I can't believe I almost forgot about this. That was kind of before I got into FL Studio hardcore, and what I was using was this program called Mad Tracker, and it was bad. Like this music was bad. I can't really say much about it just because it was so weird. That was one of the weirdest projects I ever did. Those were just weird. That MySpace profile is actually still up. Yeah, so I mean, moving further back on from that, A Hero's Legacy, I released 3 albums. I don't think that one I wanted to take seriously, but the music just wasn't like good, so I just didn't care for it as much. So I eventually gave it up, and then I wanted to try to consolidate everything together. So I remember I made like a blog post saying that like I was going to be taking down a bunch of profiles to consolidate everything together, and I was trying to make A Hero's Legacy like my main focus, and then everything else would just kind of come back to this. So anything from that point on was just going to be released under that name, but I ended up just, forgetting the whole thing by that point. And then that was like towards the later part of 2009 that I eventually just kind of said, I'm gonna walk away from this. I don't really want to keep doing this, and it's starting to get old and boring, and no one really cares anymore. So by the end of 2009 was when I was really starting to like take like a step back from making music all that seriously. And then once Facebook started becoming a thing and I started going on there more, I started up another techno project called Critical Bypass, which, fun fact, I found out that I had actually gotten played on Swedish radio at some point. I lost the email, but I remember getting an email saying that they wanted to play some of my music on this like Swedish college station or something like that, and then they I guess they ended up doing it. They just wanted to know if it was okay, and I honestly didn't care, but I didn't know how to really reply. So yeah, so that happened, but I have an album that's up on Bandcamp from that. I think that's probably like the best music I've ever released as a solo kind of artist. It's still there. If you go to Critical Bypass, which is spelled kind of weird, it's CRYTYKALBYPASS.bandcamp.com. You can get my album there, and then I released one further song under that originally, but then I tried changing the project name to A plus B plus, which I don't know where that came from. But I don't really like that name, so I went back to starting to use Critical Bypass. But I haven't released anything in a really long time, just because I haven't made anything that I'm really satisfied with. Nor have I finished anything, so I mean, it's not worth releasing. But yeah, so the whole long video has a point, and that point is that this whole underground scene of MySpace musicians has just kind of like disappeared. I feel like a lot, like some of these projects seem like they kind of translated over to Facebook for a little while, but then a lot of them they haven't posted in years. Motionless Battle was a really good one for a long time. Um, I mean, I just if you search up Piranha Party, I know this website exists. It's one of the blog spots that used to host like a lot of, well, they didn't host, but they shared a lot of music. Was Piranha Party, and I know it exists as a WordPress blog now, but they haven't posted since like 2010. I was just on there a little while ago, and that's how I found one of my albums. And they have, and some of the links are actually still working, that they just have like so much stuff, and I want to kind of go through it all and just kind of like pick out like some of the stuff that I can really remember, some of the stuff that I think was good, some of the stuff I think that was just kind of terrible. So I mean, that'll be like a follow-up video to this, but I just really just wanted to talk about like my experience being one of those kind of things. It's just been sitting on my mind, and I've been wanting to talk about it, but there's been nobody to talk about it to, so I figured I'd make a video, and then hopefully would find the right people that would either A, remember, or B, be interested enough to listen to what I have to say about it. Um, but yeah, and I think I might like upload all my old stuff if anybody's really interested. I know some of it is still there on Piranha Party. They have links to like Mediafire. Mediafire, oh my god, everybody uploaded to Mediafire. Um, that is still a really good web host, by the way. I would keep using them if I could, but yeah. So yeah, so it was just like a weird, just kind of period of time that I don't think many people really thought much about, and I don't think a lot of people even really remember it. Yeah, and I mean, if you were part of this whole like movement or community or whatever you really want to call it, I actually feel like it was like this really underground movement that just didn't have a chance, and it was such a fun time, and so many people. It was actually kind of fun that people could be popular, but you still had that possibility that if you send them a message, they would respond back, and you could have a full-blown conversation with some of these people. Um, One person in particular I'm actually friends with on Facebook that actually remembers this whole thing. I don't know if she wants me to name her or not. I'll just respect if she doesn't. Um, but I know which project she had started, and I know she changed it to something different. And like she was just commenting on my post I made a little while ago about how this was just like a weird time. Um, yeah, it's just so weird, and like I was saying, if you were part of this, or if if I mentioned you in this video and you stumbled upon it, like leave a comment, like let us know what you're up to now. Like, did you continue being a musician, or what do you have to say? Like, what were your feelings on it? I'm curious. I want to know what happened to some of you guys. I mean, I know everybody lives normal and plain lives mostly now, and I don't know if any of you have actually found success doing something. Um, so yeah, but yeah, I'm sick and tired of saying yeah, and but um, yeah. So I'm just gonna leave you guys with this, and then I'll probably upload my music if anybody wants to hear it. I mean, if there's something that you can't find on Piranha Party that I mentioned in the video, just let me know and I'll upload it. Um, or if there's just some weird crap that you want to hear, I can probably try to find it. I mean, I know I still have a bunch of really weird music from that time downloaded on my old hard drive that I could dig up, but yeah, I'll probably wind up making a follow-up video that's just kind of going through like I'll probably throw in some of my music, but I want to kind of go through like other people's music and just kind of explain what I can remember about them, how I found out about them, that kind of thing. So yeah, but that's about it. This video is like 30 minutes long now already, so alright, yeah, that's pretty much my piece, so see ya.